Talk about the Samoa Deal. The federal government has signed a $150 billion Samoa Deal in a bid to get financial assistance to finance infrastructure projects across the country. According to reports, the agreement reportedly includes clauses that require underdeveloped and developing nations, who knows, potentially to support rights of the LGBTQ as a condition for receiving financial and other forms of support from advanced countries.
Well, let's also recall that in 2014, then President Goodluck Jonathan passed a bill outlawing same-sex marriages and gay relationships, making LGBTQ unacceptable and unlawful in Nigeria. Now, in response to a recent outcry over the deal, media assistant to Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, Bolaji Adebiyi, as well, clarified on Wednesday that the documents referenced by Bagudu during the EU reception pertained strictly to economic development and did not mention LGBTQ or same-sex marriage. This morning, Nigerians have continued to talk, especially on social media, as against why the presidency has gone ahead to sign this agreement, knowing fully well that this does not in any way work with the legal frameworks that protect the nation. But then again, this morning, we do have a legal practitioner who joins us this morning. Evans Ufeli joins us this morning. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
All right. So this is going to be a very, very brief conversation and straight to the point. I'm sure you've taken time out to look through the Samoa Deal. One question Nigerians are asking, and would like to get the answer directly from a legal practitioner like you, is there any LGBTQ rights that has been upheld seeing the government signing this agreement or this deal?
Well, I have gone through that report, except that the agreement itself is not accessible yet. It's not online. It's the federal government that have custody of it. But the citizen of the country can, by the Freedom of Information Act, apply for that agreement. Whilst that will be done, I will do that in person. The report that surrounds that agreement states that the federal government signed that agreement in compliance with the Constitution of Nigeria, that they've looked through it and it does not have any parts. There is nothing contained in it thereof that is suggestive of the LGBTQ, okay, and that it is signed based on the compliance with all sections of the provision of the 1999 Constitution. Now, why that is clear, what is not clear is that the 1999 Constitution is not the only law we have in Nigeria. It's not the only law. We have subsidiary legislations, and we have laws and legislations on different issues. And most importantly, we have law against same-sex marriage, okay, which the same-sex relationship, marriage and all that. So if they have come to tell us that what is contained in the agreement as part of the terms and condition has nothing to do with anything contravening the Constitution, is it also true that there is nothing in the agreement that contravenes any other law in the country? That is the question. That is the real question, okay? Because people who are talking about it, admitting ideas around it, I don't think there's anyone that have seen the agreement itself, except the federal government. So until the federal government release that report, the agreement itself, and then the citizens are able to go through the clauses and all provisions thereof, we cannot confidentially say, apart from what we have been told, that it does not contravene the Constitution. We cannot confidently say that it does not contravene any other law. But one thing about international agreement like this, especially one targeted at developing countries, to help developing countries grow, it comes to a lot of conditions. You couldn't have been asked to just come in and join the fray so that you get loan and get development and all that. It comes with a lot of conditions. And part of the condition it comes with is that most of these countries that are member states want you to retool your legislation, retool your country to accept certain norms which sometimes may not be the kind of behavior and conduct that is allowed in your home country. Okay, we saw it when Obama mooted the idea during the Jonathan time, stating that we have to come up with that Nigeria is intolerant about people of same sex and the rest of that. That we have to make sure that we're inclusive and get everybody on board. And the country refused and came up with that law in 2014. And because of that, it cost us a lot because the United States refused to sell arms to Nigeria. And that was when Boko Haram had taken so many territories and local governments to the point where Goodluck Jonathan had to declare state of emergency in those local governments when the insurgency are taking over. We couldn't get arms from the US and the rest of that. So the federal government should come clean, put up that agreement, but once we have an application for it to see what is in there and to determine whether or not this LGBTQ issue is inclusive. Because there are people who are already pushing that idea, even within the country, who say they were created like that, and as such, the government of the country shouldn't have enacted a law to restrain them from what they are by nature or what they are by hormonal distraction. So, but the conversation is ongoing, and that agreement will get out to the public very soon. I'm very sure of that.
Okay. I also wanted to ask, I mean, there's an agreement that I have seen. We'll probably talk about that much later, but there's an agreement I've seen. We know that the Ministry of Information did put out a tweet on X. They said on 28 June 2024, Nigeria signed the Samoa Agreement at the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States Secretariat in Brussels, Belgium. The partnership agreement is between the EU and its member states on one hand and the members of the OACPS on the other. Now, we know that negotiations started in 2018. Now, if we go to this document, there's an article, Article 10. Now, like you said, we're waiting for the original document, but I want to imagine that this is the same document they've been negotiating with. And there's a particular article that has come up as maybe a potential subject of conversation. Article 10, subsection 1, talks about gender equality. The parties reaffirm their strong commitment to achieving gender equality, the full enjoyment of all human rights by all, as well as everyone's empowerment as a driver for sustainable development. They shall embody the principle of gender equality in their national constitutions or other appropriate legislation. Could this maybe be what is being interpreted? And I'm also going to follow up with, I think, Article 9, subsection 1, which says the parties recognizing that human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated shall promote, protect, and fulfill all human rights, be they civil, political, economic, social, or cultural. Could this be is there a possibility that this is maybe what is being interpreted? And I mean, from your own perspective, what would you say would be the interpretation of these articles? I know I'm probably putting you under the spot.
That article is talking about gender equality. Gender equality does not in any way mean same sex, okay? And it went further to talk about all human rights, okay? All human rights. You know why the original agreement is important? Under laws and agreement and legislation, so when you say all human rights, there's going to be an interpretation section of that agreement that will define to us what human rights mean to the detail, okay, in context of the agreement itself. Does human rights, all human rights means same-sex rights? Is same-sex a right? Same-sex marriage and all that, is it a right, okay? And if it's a right under which law? Because I know that the United Nations declaration and all that, Charter on Human Rights have no such as human rights, okay? So all human rights underlined. That is why when the original agreement is applied for and obtained, interpretation section will deal with what human rights mean in the context of that law. But from what you have read in that Article 9 and 10, it does not say anything about same sex. The only pointer to what maybe that could include is that all human rights. and whether same-sex is actually human rights. So that area is what should be probed. So far, so good. We've not seen any express provision in the law. The express mention of one thing excludes the other. You cannot read into an agreement or a legislation what is not there. Okay, if it is there, it's there. If it's not there, it is not there. But I like the panic and I like the fears Nigerians are raising on this. It shows that people are conscious. People want to be sure that the federal government is representing the citizens very well. We don't want any misrepresentation. We're dealing with a lot already. Okay, so it will put an eye on this and watch this through and see where this actually is going to. If we want to do the issue of LGBTQ, I think it's a conversation we have to have internally as a country, okay, and see whether that law should be revisited or not, okay, and whether this qualify as human rights and to what extent can that do and all that. It's not part of our culture, but we have people who are that disposition that they're treated like that and all. There's so many conversations around it. Some people are going to argue that it is close-minded for one to argue that people of same sex should not be allowed to perpetrate their trade and all that. And some people have said that it's against the order of nature. Okay, even in the United States, there are a lot of people who are against it, and there are a lot of people who also are for it and promotes it. Okay, but for this agreement, until we get to see the express mention of that in the agreement, then we really cannot say that it is daring or not.
All right. Well, a lot of Nigerians are equally worried if why the federal government would have kept mute or quiet until it took one person to dig deep and then bring out the conversation and bring it to the fore. Of course, with the newspaper as well, which was yesterday's newspaper, breaking it down that this is what the federal government has done and going further to initiate a conversation around the risk that is associated with signing this Samoa deal. Is there any way, what do you think the federal government can do going forward? Although we've seen their press release stating that there was no such thing. Nigerians should actually, in other words, just relax, that wasn't done. But is there a way going forward that you think and other members in the society think that the federal government next time should possibly have a conversation around this first before going ahead to sign the deal? And do you think that as a country currently, because we're stifled with the economic hardship and we see what's going on, does it show that the federal government is willing to get money at all costs from anywhere, which could actually cause harm to the society as well?
Well, let me start with the first. The federal government, the moment this is brokered, that is how we have a National Assembly. Because we cannot go and assemble ourselves and begin to, debate on issues and have the government oversight government directly. That is why we have donated our allegiance to the National Assembly in representative capacity. And since we run a democracy where it is all about representative government, that should be a discourse now in Parliament. Parliament is supposed to start a debate on it, on the issue under reference. I know it has been signed, but whether signed or not, they can oversight that issue because nobody knew up until the newspaper and all that came up with this idea. This is already, we're told it's already signed and all that. And the full terms and conditions, we still haven't said it. The federal government, even that came out to say that it is not connected to LGBTQ, it has nothing to do with LGBTQ. They have not also told us the terms and conditions. There is no agreement that is not without terms and conditions. So that terms and conditions is what Parliament is supposed to broach. Okay, we need to broach it. Even when agreements are signed, sometimes agreements can be rescinded. Okay, especially when it has not followed the procedures proper, it can be rescinded. So as a sovereign state, we have that prerogative to so do. And on the other hand, whether the federal government is trying at all costs to just get money and all that, well, we could see that the federal government is trying as much as possible to put the economy on track, the economy that they willingly and deliberately destroyed, okay? They took us out of track and almost have abandoned us, okay? And if it's an attempt to get money at all costs, if it's going to affect us further, it's going to put us in bad light and in bad place. I do not think they should go on with it, okay? Except that we see that the terms are clear and the coast is clear and there is no injection of any kind of practice or lifestyle that is not in conformity with the laws of the country. Now we're talking about the legal framework. We already have laws in the country. If there's any part thereof that is inconsistent with the provision of any law in the country, then that document itself already stands the chance of being thrown out, even if it has been signed. Because what will now happen is that people will now go to court and say, you know what, this agreement was signed, the terms and conditions are at variance with the laws of the land. And because they are at variance with the laws of the land, it cannot say true even though it has been signed, okay? So then you begin to have around it. So fine and good, the federal government should sign an agreement that will benefit the country, put us in good light. But if it has to do with anything that unto us, towards our law, then it should be repealed.
All right. I want to say thank you so much, Legal Practitioner Ufeli, for joining us and helping us to get an understanding of this. Hopefully, like you rightly said, the federal government will make the documents available and then Nigerians can actually glance through and see what agreements were made. Thank you for your time.
Very well. You're welcome.
All right.